Hello, good afternoon, Ryan. Thanks for consulting me, and I hope my advice will help you dealing with your employment matter. So let's look at the facts of your case. You told me that you work in a graphics design company named Created Limited as a computer software designer since May 2009. You told me that the managing director of the company announced that all the employees would get a bonus of £1,000, but you did not receive it. So you decided to speak to the human resources department about this, and they stated that you are not an employee and you are a self-employed, and that's why you did not receive the bonus. So the issue here today is whether you are a self-employed or an employee. We should look at the statutory regulations, which is the Employment Rights Act 1996, and we should look at the section 230 subsection 1, which defines an employee as an individual who works under contract of employment. So there are two alternatives for those who work in a company. They can be hired to work under a contract for service and they will be an employee, or under a contract for services and they will be an independent contractor, in other words a self-employed. We can say that your employment status will help define what rights and responsibilities you have at work. As an employee, you are entitled to all minimum statutory rights, including redundancy pay, family and friends rights, and the right not to be unfairly dismissed. In order to be an employee, there are some tests to be satisfied, and most of them were developed through case law. The first test we should look at is the control test, and it has been established in the Emmons and Oakes case in 1880. Using the test, we should see whether you are subject to the command of your master as to the manner in which you should do your work. In other words, if you have been told how and when to do the work. So there's a problem here, because as a computer software designer, you are a skilled person, and you use your own expertise to do the work, so there is likely less control from your employer. You have been told specifically to assist the company in relation to the computer software and nothing else. So the test will not be satisfied. So the second test is the integration test, which has been developed in the case of Stevenson and McDonald in 1952. This test concerns whether you are an integral part of the company. For example, if you can make any decisions under the company, for example, hiring other people, or attending internal meetings, general meetings. And your job in the company is to deal with the software, the computer softwares. And if there is no other computer software designer in the company, you can be seen as an integral part of the business. However, it does not necessarily mean that you are an employee. Okay, so I hope you are understanding all the tests now. Okay, so let's look at the third test, which is the economic reality test. It has been developed in the Market Investigation Minister of Social Security in 1969. It concerns the extent that you bear the financial risk. and whether you can you provide your own equipment to the company to do the work. As you told me that the company provides a desk and a laptop, they also pay you sick and holiday pay. However, you also told me that you submit an invoice when you do overtime, and you work for other companies. These factors here shows that you are not working under contract of employment. It shows that you are not an employee but a self-employed. Okay. The other test we should look is the mutuality of obligation test, and it had been developed in the case of Carmichael National Power in 2000. And this test concerns whether there is an obligation from the company to provide work and for you to accept it. And you told me that you can choose which days and hours to work, and this is likely that there is no contract of employment. There is no fixed term. For example, you have to come every Mondays or Tuesdays, but here you can choose the days and hours, and you can work with the company. Okay, the last test we should look is the multiple composite, and has been established in the Ready-Mix Cronkite Minister of Pensions in 1968. So there are 3 conditions under this test which must be met in order for an employment relationship exists. The first one is that you have to provide a personal service. The second one is that you must be under the control of the employer to a sufficient degree. And the last condition is that there must be any provision inconsistent with your contract of employment. Okay, so let's look at the first one. Personal service. This means that you have to work yourself. You have to go to the company and work at the premises, as you said, and you have to provide your own work and skill. So we can assume that you don't have to, allowed to send anyone else, another computer software designer, to do the same work. So it must be you. So this condition here you met this condition as you work at the premises. Okay, so the second one is control from your employer. You told me that you are required to work at least 20 hours per week, and you must be contactable in the case of any emergency. So these factors here suggest a level of control from your employer. So this condition is met as well. Okay, so the third condition is any provisions inconsistent on your contract of employment. You told me that you have to pay your own tax and your national insurance contributions. This is considered as factors inconsistent with a contract of employment, because as an employee, your employer will normally deduct tax and national insurance contribution from your pay, so you don't have to do that. And we can see that because you have to pay for these contributions, this condition is not met. Okay, so after all, we can say that the HR department was right. You are not an employee, but self-employed. However, if you think that the £1,000 will help you financially, and I suggest that you could write a nice letter to the HR department or your managing director for them to reconsider your case, as you have been working for them since 2009. Thank you.